KK Arnold does not have to be Paige Bueckers. She does not have to be Azzi Fudd. But for the first time in her UConn career, she might have to be the guard who decides how far this team goes. Because the defense is already elite. The passing is already proven. The leadership is already there. But now comes the make or break question. Can KK Arnold turn from UConn's safest guard into UConn's most important one? And that question might decide whether UConn is just a contender or the team everyone is chasing again.
Prime Field!
Let's be clear from the jump. This is not a KK Arnold is in trouble video. This is the opposite. This is about a player who has already proven she can win at UConn, but is now entering the first season where her identity might have to expand. In 2025-26, UConn went 38-1. They went 20-0 in the Big East. They entered the Final Four unbeaten, and then South Carolina punched them in the mouth 62-48. And that loss matters because it did not just end a perfect season. It opened a brand new era. Paige Bueckers was already gone as the 2025 WNBA number 1 pick. Then Azzi Fudd became the 2026 WNBA number 1 pick. So now UConn is moving forward without 2 number 1 picks. That means Sarah Strong is the superstar centerpiece. Ashlynn Shade is a senior leader. Blanca Quiñonez returns after a big freshman year. Olivia Vukosa arrives as a blue-chip front court force. Kayleigh Heckel gives the backcourt another creator, but the guard who may quietly control the whole machine? KK Arnold. So here's the roadmap. First, we're going to break down what KK already does at an elite level. Then we'll talk about the scoring debate, because that's where this gets real. Then we'll get into leadership, pace, and decision-making. And at the end, I'll give my prediction for what UConn needs from her to win the whole thing. Before anyone says, well, can KK handle the role? Let's stop right there. She already handled a massive role. As a junior in 2025-26, Arnold started 38 games. She led UConn with 174 assists. She was second on the team with 102 steals. And she ranked second nationally with a 4.05 assist-to-turnover ratio. That is not random, and that is not just good teammate production. That is high-level guard control. And here's the part that matters most. When you lose elite shot making, your margin for error gets smaller. Every bad turnover hurts more. Every rush possession matters more. Every defensive breakdown becomes louder. So when your senior point guard gives you elite ball security, elite defensive activity, and real tempo control, that is championship infrastructure. The debate is not whether KK Arnold is good. The debate is whether good is enough for the new version of UConn, because last year she could be the connective tissue. Now she might have to be the nervous system. And that leads us to the part of her game everybody's going to argue about. KK averaged 6.9 points per game in 2025-26. Now some fans will look at that and say, yo, that's not enough. UConn lost Azzi Fudd. Somebody has to replace those points. And that argument is not crazy. Azzi was a shot maker. Paige was a shot creator. Those are not easy players to replace by committee. But here's where the debate gets interesting. KK shot 54.4% from the field. That means this is not a player who is chucking, forcing, or wasting possessions. She was efficient. She picked her spots. She played within the flow. But the question is, can she keep that efficiency while increasing pressure on the defense? Because there is a huge difference between scoring more and hunting shots that make your team worse. UConn does not need KK to suddenly become a 20-point-per-game volume scorer. That is not her game. And honestly, that may not be what this roster needs. What UConn needs is selective aggression. When the defense goes under a screen, can she punish it? When Sarah Strong gets doubled, can KK attack the tilted floor? When a freshman is nervous, can KK settle the possession? When the offense goes cold in a Final Four type game, can she create one clean look before the whole thing spirals? That is the difference between being a connector and being a senior point guard. Because in March, sometimes the playbook breaks. Sometimes the first option is covered. Sometimes your best scorer is being trapped. And that's when your point guard has to decide the game without forcing the game. Now let's talk about the part of KK's game that is not up for debate. The defense. Gino Auriemma already gave us the quote that frames this entire conversation. After KK helped slow Notre Dame star Hannah Hidalgo, Gino said, "I told her I thought this is the best game that she's played since she's been at Connecticut." She's one of the top guards in America, and you've got to go out there with a certain mindset. That is not casual praise. That is Gino putting a standard on her, because defense from the point guard spot changes the personality of your whole team. When KK is pressuring the ball, UConn plays faster. When she turns ball handlers, UConn's help defense gets cleaner. When she gets deflections, Sarah's strong and the front court can run. And when she sets that tone, the rest of the roster has no choice but to match it. That is why her 102 steals matter. But even more than the number, it's the identity. UConn can win games with Sarah Strong's dominance. They can win games with shooting. They can win games with depth. But if KK Arnold becomes the emotional engine defensively, now you have something that travels. And defense travels in March. Here's where senior KK Arnold can become different. Not just faster, not just louder, more in command. KK has already talked about growing as a point guard, understanding the pace of everything, distributing, talking to teammates, and putting people in the best position. That quote is the senior leap. Not, I need to get mine. Not, I need to be Paige. It is, I need to understand what every possession requires. And that matters because this roster has a lot of moving pieces. Sarah Strong is the superstar constant. Ashlynn Shade is a proven senior guard. Ali Zebel can space the floor. Blanca Quiñonez gives UConn another versatile weapon. Kayleigh Heckel arrives from USC after averaging 6.9 points, 2.8 rebounds, and 2.8 assists. Olivia Vukosa is a 6'5" frontcourt talent and one of the biggest additions in the country. Then you add Marine Dursis, Giovanna Popovic, Kellis Fisher, and the rest of that guard room. That is talent. But talent does not automatically become rhythm. Someone has to organize it. Someone has to know when to push, when to pull back, when to feed the post, when to hit strong early, when to get Shade a touch, when to calm a young player down. That is the job. And that is why this is make or break. Not because KK is on the edge of failure. Because UConn's ceiling might depend on whether she becomes the player who makes everyone else easier to use. Now let's be fair, there is a counter-argument here. Some fans will say, if KK only averages around 7 points again, UConn is not winning the title. And I understand that. When you lose Paige and AZ, you cannot just pretend scoring solves itself. UCLA just won the 2026 national championship by beating South Carolina 79-51. That is a statement. That is the new bar. South Carolina beat UConn by 14 in the Final Four. UConn shot just 31% in that loss. So yes, shot making matters. Half-court offense matters. Being able to score when the game slows down absolutely matters. But here's my pushback. The answer does not have to be KK becomes a star scorer. The answer can be KK becomes a more dangerous decision maker. There's a difference. A dangerous decision maker scores when you ignore her, passes when you overhelp, pushes when you are tired, slows it down when the team is rushed, defends without fouling, leads without needing 18 shots. That version of KK may be more valuable than a forced scoring leap. So my question is not, can KK average 15? My question is, can KK make defenses pay for treating her like the fourth option? Because if she can, UConn becomes much harder to guard. Here's my prediction. KK Arnold's make-or-break season will not be judged by points per game. He'll be judged by 4 things. Number 1, does she stay elite with the ball? That 4.05 assist-to-turnover ratio is special. If she keeps that while her responsibility grows, UConn's offense stays stable. Number 2, does she punish disrespect? If teams sag off, go under screens, or overload on Sarah Strong, KK has to make them pay just enough. Number 3, does she set the defensive temperature? If she's one of the top guards in America defensively, UConn has a real identity every night. And number 4, does she become the voice? Not just a veteran, not just a starter, the voice. The guard who tells everyone, we're good, next play, run this, get here, I've got it. Because UConn has the talent. Sarah Strong can be the best player in the country. Ashlynn Shade gives them senior toughness. Vukosa gives them size. Quiñonez gives them versatility. Heckel gives them another ball handler. But if KK Arnold becomes the commander of all of that, then UConn is not rebuilding after Paige and AZ. They are reloading around a new identity. So here's the debate. Is KK Arnold UConn's most important guard now? Not the highest scorer, not the biggest name, the most important guard. Because if she makes the senior leap, not into Paige, not into AZ, but into the best version of KK, this UConn team could be terrifying. But if she stays only a connector and the scoring pressure gets too heavy, then that Final Four ceiling gets a lot more complicated. Drop your answer in the comments. Does KK Arnold need to become a double-digit scorer for UConn to win it all? Or is her real value defense, pace, and control? And if you're locked in on UConn women's hoops all season, hit subscribe, because this next era is about to tell us a lot. KK Arnold's make-or-break season starts now, and the answer might decide UConn's entire year.
Prime Field